Now that I have a rough view of the, I'm just going to page up to go to my highest view here. Now we have a very rough version of the model. There's still like some, I don't know if I want to call them details, but there's still some missing elements, such as like the face, and maybe just a little bit more of a smoothing, a little more fixing up around here. Okay, so to do that, see, this seems too thin. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to tessellate the model, and then we're going to sculpt on that. Okay, so with the model, I'm just going to, this mount is fine. I'm just going to concentrate on the face because I want to make a video for the whole thing, so it'll just be long. So with the model like this, just go to Mesh and then choose Tessellate, Generate Tessellation Mesh. And what you're going to see is it just turns everything into triangles. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on his face so you get a better idea. Okay, so here we go. We have his face, right? Now, like I said before, if I tried to sculpt onto this guy, you're going to see it's not going to work. It even says, oh, you're trying to sculpt too minute for how coarse it is. So what we want to do is we're going to go down here, and we're going to turn on Tessellate. So you're going to I think you have to do this for each brush. I don't remember exactly, but you might have to do it for each brush. And what that's going to do is that, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, is that you're going to see that it's actually going to create geometry. Let me make a bigger one so you can see it more obviously. It's going to develop, see how it makes geometry as I sculpt. And so this is particularly useful if you have something where you need to like add a detail. So let's say, for instance, like he's wearing pants, right? So I can go down here, make this a little bit smaller, make the strength a little bit lower, and then I can kind of just draw this pant line here, where there wouldn't have been enough geometry to maybe do that before, but now there is, right? So I could just kind of, and then I'll just smooth that out. Hopefully you get an idea. I'm gonna hit W so you can't see the thing, but right. So that's the idea. So I'm gonna go up here and I'm just gonna work on this a little bit and give you some tips as far as the head is concerned. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I got this. I'll put W back on so you can see a little bit better. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. Now, if you remember, B is brush size, M is strength. Okay, but N, that is tessellation size. So watch, if I make this really big, it's actually gonna do the opposite of what you're thinking. It's actually going to leave it really broad. See, I didn't do much, but watch this. If I take the N, if I take the N, I hold N down, and I make it very small, you're going to see it's going to make a lot of geometry. So you have to think about that while you're doing it. Now, the more geometry I put, see if I try to smooth this, it doesn't smooth out quite as well. So you want to try and make it as broad as possible, so don't make it overly dense if you can help it. Just enough to do what you want. And notice that that triangle is supposed to represent the size of the triangles that are being made. It's not 100%. If you look at those and you look at this, you can see they're not, that one's pretty close, but there's definitely ones that aren't that size. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit broader. So first thing I would suggest doing is in the profile view, if you look at your head, it is one head tall, obviously. It is 7/8 head deep, okay? And it is 3/4 of a head wide, typically. Obviously, the head shapes and stuff change. One of the interesting things is, so basically, if you look at it from the side, if it's one head tall by 7/8, it's almost a square, okay? The other thing is that right at the, you probably know this because usually you learn this pretty early on. The eye hole, right, where your eyes are halfway up the head. But that also lines up with the auditory canal. And the auditory canal is halfway through your head this way. So basically, if you find where the hole of your ear is, that is where the basically halfway of both is, all right? And the interesting thing is that the jaw juts into just before that. So you can actually use that as a guide to draw the jaw. So I'm kind of looking at this, and I'm just going to draw my jaw. I like to do it this way. I like to draw the jaw line. Oops, I right-clicked on something. Who knows what I did, all right? And then we'll just make this a little bit bigger. And I will try to draw the jawline this way, and then I'll smooth. I'm just holding shift. And I'll try to draw a jawline first, so that way I get kind of an idea of what I'm working with. I'm just going to smooth that all out just in general. Let's see, it's a little bit more of a butt to his chin here. Okay, so I suggest I'm just going to brush a little bit like that, and then smooth. All right, so try to, I'm just going to Tesla cancel. All right, I wasn't trying to, I don't know, I think I'm hitting buttons and not realizing it with my thing here. All right, so something like that. I'm just going to go ahead and maybe do the ear as well. So I'm going to go a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to put the ear right here. I didn't think I was doing anything. Okay, so we'll go like that. It's a little bit early on for the ear. It doesn't really matter too awful much, but I'm just going to smooth that out. Just going to go a little bit more that way. All right, so you can see it's not quite enough geometry. I'm just going to kind of roughly put that in. And then I'm going to put the eye holes right here. Oh, sorry, it's control. And I'm going to hold control to put them inwards. So I'm just going to kind of do almost like I'm doing a skull. I'm just going to sink them in first, like so. And then I'll smooth out the results. Okay, just holding shift to smooth. And I'm just going to hit W because we don't really need that now. So I'm just going to try and smooth that out. Just going to check something real quick. Did I make a duplicate of this? Yeah, see, there's multiple copies. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, see, that's the problem. Somehow there was like a second one. Weird. Alright. I don't know. I think I'm accidentally duplicating them because I noticed that the geometry is being weird. Anyway, so go like that. Alright, and then I'll just smooth that out. And then I do almost like a Roman helmet kind of thing where I will kind of build out the nose bridge region up to the brow, like so. Okay. Smooth that out, right? So every time you do a stroke, just smooth it out. And then I'm going to do the zygomatic arch, make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Like the cheekbones, basically, you're probably familiar with. And then we have the mandible, the maxilla and the mandible right here. And I'm just going to smooth that out. And you can see we're starting to get a structure. I also like to put a line right here because basically you have your frontal and the parietal sections of the skull, and there's usually a ridge that kind of rides up right around here. Okay, so notice that it's not super smooth because I'm kind of trying to keep it somewhat broad, but I'm getting I want to leave it as broad as possible, and then afterwards I'll go through and I'll make some adjustments, right? So let's go ahead and I'm going to cut this in a little bit more. Again, just holding control. Okay, so something like that. All right, so we're getting then maybe a little bit more cheek right here. All right. Okay, so his nose is definitely got to come out a little bit more. And I might even just, bit of a bridge there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use my grab now. And we'll just make this a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to try and just adjust the proportions. So if you have his head is not quite the right proportions. This is definitely going to come out a lot more. Pull that up a little bit. Will be. So this has got to come out. Okay. Oops. Okay. I feel like this nose or that ear needs to come forward a little bit more. It's got a little bit back. All right. Now let's look at the side. And I think overall this feels a little bit shallow. We're going to make that a bit smaller. Just get this to be a little bit. Let me see. That's got to come down a little. Pull this in a little bit. Okay. That's something to start with. Okay. Let's go back to sculpting. And I'm just going to add, definitely missing some here. Some cheap stuff. Right? All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and up the fidelity a little bit by holding N and just clicking. It's up and down. And I'm just going to make it a bit more dense. Oops. And undo that. I also need to make this smaller. Okay, good. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to add a little bit more stuff. So let's get in closer here. But the main thing is work broad to specific. It's not working in the broad sense. You're not going to be able to fix it the other way. So just be aware. So, and to put a little bit of hole there. Okay. Not a great nose. Smooth that out. Okay, so just make sure you're just constantly smoothing it out. Okay, so you can see that looks like junk, and then I just smooth it out. Alright, so I'm spending a little too much time on this nose to start with. So this is one of those things. I'm actually probably getting a little bit too detailed, to be quite frank with you, but sometimes it's a little bit easier if you do a little bit of that. So let's make this a little bit smaller, and I'm going to try to draw the eyelids. This is not super great, but hopefully you get the idea. Of what we're looking for. Okay. This guy does not look very good. So, you can see like that's not quite right, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the grab. This is the great thing with having 3D stuff. So I can kind of pull this up, push that back. Oops. Something more like that. And in general, this whole area needs to be, make sure I go this way so it pulls it more forward than up. Down a little better. Let's make this a little bit bigger, and we're just going to try and pull this back a little bit. All right, and then let's go back to 1 and make this a lot smaller. For the mouth, I'm just going to go ahead and go like that. I'm going to hold Control, and it's just like a little M, like so. Just draw a line in there, represent the mouth, then smooth it all out because it looks really ratty. Okay, then we're just going to make this a little bit bigger, and we're going to do a little bit bigger than that. So this might be better with a bigger fall off, so it's a little more round. And it's got to go down like this. So it's going to kind of depend on what your character is. You know, like you want to make sure you're just looking at your reference. I'm not looking at my reference as much as I ought to be. So, where are you? Things back up and down. I seem to have lost what I was doing. Oof. See, I didn't rotate around enough, so now it looks all weird. Okay. More like that. And then the upper lip is a little bit different. What you want to do is actually have it draw kind of the upper part of it and have that go back like so. And then smooth it out. I'm just going to smooth out this line in general. And then I'm going to use the grab again and see if I can pull that up. It's turning into a little bit much of like a Bob Ross thing going on here. All right. Let's get a little more like that. Now, right here, the pinch might also be helpful. So just go like this, and I'm just going to kind of draw in there, and you're going to see it's going to pinch in that stuff. Grab, pull that down, pull that up, pull that down. Just going to smooth that a little bit. There's a little weird imperfection there. He's got the weirdest looking lips. Let's pull those out. Right. Then let's go back to sculpt, and I need to cut this back in a little bit. Let's make this a little bit wider. I think I just have it too. That was holding shift. There we go. All right, so This looks pretty bad. It looks like you got bad plastic surgery. But you get the idea. So the idea is just to sculpt and then to use that tessellate, and then you should be able to get the other features that you want there. Usually it's quite a bit to like get this where I want it. So, but this could be kind of time consuming. Don't worry about getting too nuts about it being accurate, because literally what I want you to do is just make sure you have all the pieces there. Like right now, you know, I have an ear, I have eyes, I have a brow. Most of it's there that I would need. It's just about mostly at this point just trying to get the proportions a little bit better. So you might find that you you don't need to be it doesn't need to be super well done. I just need it to be the stuff needs to be present so that you have it to work with. Okay, so I would only go semi-detailed with the face, this scary face. But if you wanted to add, like, you know, where shirt lines were, or like pockets, like things that you might, when you go to do the topology, you want to be able to include those in some ways. Those might be worth it as well. So like I might like just go ahead and include, you know, a pocket hole here, so that way when I go to do it, I know that there's a pocket there, and I'll just make sure the topology follows that, make sure the topology follows this. You know, like there's shoes here, so like I probably would go through and put that stuff in there. What I'll do is I'll sculpt this more. I'm just going to do the same thing I already showed you. There isn't really anything more than I did until I get it kind of closer, and then I'll show you what the results are after this video so that you get a good idea of like where you need to be. Or actually, what I'll even do is probably have that video first. So hopefully you get a good idea of how that works. Yeah, so good luck.